Serious, what is the creepiest or most unexplained thing that's happened to you that you still think about to this day? Few years ago, I was at my lowest point in life. Several people close to me had passed away unexpectedly. I was being bullied every day at my job. My life was falling apart. I was past being depressed. I just couldn't imagine waking up another day. So I planned my suicide, bought a one-way plane ticket, got sleeping pills, and wrote a series of suicide notes. On the day I was to fly out to fulfill my plan, there was a terrible accident on the freeway to the airport. It was shut down both ways. So I drove into a nearby pub to have a beer and wait out the traffic. The second I sat on the patio with my drink, a gentleman asked if he could sit with me. Whatever, I thought. Sure, who cares? He told me that whatever I was doing next was a terrible idea and I would regret it. I thought, who is this random fucker? But I listened. He said that he sensed I was in pain, but that I had an incredible life ahead of me, and that this was not the way my story was supposed to end. Again, I'd never met this guy in my life, and hadn't mentioned a word to him about my plan. He asked me to hand him my keys and my wallet, and he'd give them back to me after I talked, and he listened. I poured my heart out to this random guy, told him all my traumas and pains in life, and why I was heading to the airport on a one-way ticket to kill myself in a cemetery across the country where my family was buried. He just listened. And then he pulled out a lighter, asked me to pull out my suicide letters and helped me burn them. He told me I was worth so much to the world, and that after I finished my drink, I needed to head home and get some sleep. He told me I was going to be okay tomorrow, and I believed him. He then gave me my keys and wallet back. I left that afternoon and went home, hugged my family, got some sleep, and the next day I started working on myself, finding a therapist, a new job. Years later, I'm in a fantastic place in life, so far from where I was that day. To this day, no one in my life knows how close I came to killing myself. But this random stranger just somehow understood me and saved my life. I never saw him again. I don't even know his name. It's the most unexplained thing that has ever happened to me. And I think about that guy every day, so thank you, kind stranger, for saving my life that random September day on a pub patio. Oh, this day, there was a kid in my class that no one else remembers. I distinctly remember playing with this kid in kindergarten, and we were pretty much inseparable. About a month past Christmas break, he disappeared. No one remembered him, not the teachers or the others in my class. No one. I even asked the school counselor if he was okay, and she humored me by going through records to see if he'd transferred. She couldn't find a thing. I think about it at least once a month. When I was 13, I moved into my brother's bedroom, as it is an extension to the original house with an ensuite and is far larger than my old room. Originally, it was a tiny box room with the entrance to the attic but was extended outwards. The attic entrance is always open, with a permanent set of metal ladders angled up into it. There's a picture of it here. //www. Reddit.com/r/pics/comments/laftel/ the attic entrance context in comments /. Medium equals Android app and source equals share. The gray arch is where the original room ended. Within a few weeks of moving in, I'd wake up in the middle of the night to see a figure staring down me, with a white head like a skull and formless black body. It would slowly move down to the foot of my bed and stare me until I moved, at which point it would sink into the floor. Just sleep paralysis, right? And I'd begged to move into the room and had just got it set up so I wasn't going to leave. I didn't really talk about it to anyone. It gradually became less frequent over time. 8 years after this, my brother mentioned at a get-together that he used to have a sleep paralysis demon when he lived in that room, a half-joking, half-freaked-out way to other people when the topic of them came up. He described the exact same fucking thing. Neither of us mentioned it to anybody else at the time it was happening, so we have no explanation for us both experiencing the same thing. Tilde, I am currently back from uni myself due to corona with that dark void in the ceiling in the corner of my room. Driving home from work late one night, I was followed, and it was weird. I left the hospital and turned off the main road to a bunch of side streets I would take. At one point, I noticed a car behind me that made the same left turn as me. They sped up to get behind me. I thought nothing of it. Then I briefly thought about running to 7-11 to grab some food and turned on my right signal. But I realized I had food at home, so I turned my signal off. The car behind me turned on their right signal and turned it off as well exactly as I had. At that point, I got a bit spooked. So I turned my right signal on and they did as well. Instead, at the next intersection, I turned left even though my right signal was on. They did as well. They proceeded to follow me through a series of odd turns. Eventually, I turned onto a cul-de-sac I knew about and figured I could turn around there and look at the driver to see who was following me. As I approached the end of the road, they figured out what I was doing. They stopped and did a fast K-turn and sped off. It was weird. Still don't know who it was. As delivering newspapers on my paper route, when a longtime customer pulled his car next to me and asked me to just give him his daily newspaper now because he was going on a long trip. I handed him his newspaper, then skipped his house as I continued my route. The next day, I was collecting the weekly fees you used to have to go collect the money back then. No internet payment yet, and I went to his house to collect my fee. His wife answers and promptly complains that I missed her house on my deliveries the day before. I explained to her that her husband pulled up next to me. I told her what he said and that I gave him the paper. She started crying, told me that he had died a couple weeks ago, and it was obviously not possible that I spoke with her husband the day before. I know what I saw, and nearly 30 years later, I still think about that situation. I have no way to logically explain what happened, and it still gives me the creeps. Used to work in a nursing home where I cared for dementia patients. Every patient on the hall I worked on would steal spoons from dinner to give to the kids because they like shiny things. It got to the point where once a week I'd have to go through everyone's room to take back the spoons. I asked the patients about the kids many times but never got a good answer. I'd hear things like they just live here, or they stand outside in the snow and look in the windows, or they are my friends who visit. Wouldn't be so weird if they all didn't do it, but it was everyone, the ones who were still capable of speaking anyways. One time at 3 a.m., one of my patients started screaming, so I ran in her room and found her laying in bed. I asked what was wrong, and she said, "That boy is here again and won't get out of my closet." I'm scared. Don't think I have ever talked about this to anyone cause it still hurts to think about it, but yet I really wanted to share this here. Also, this is quite a long one. I had this neighbor who was around 30. And he was such a sweet guy. Let's say his name was Adam. I felt like he was the kind of older brother I've always wished for. He was an all-rounder, gym freak, good at singing and playing every possible instrument, dance, sports, cooking, etc. He used to take me and my younger brother to the beach wherever possible. So this incident took place 3 days before my 14th birthday. I was on my way to school in the morning when this absurd scene flashed in front of my eyes. It was him getting into an accident and dying. It felt surreal. I almost wanted to cry, but then I told myself maybe it's because I had watched a movie with a character dying the previous night. I continued with the day, and it was almost 8 p.m. when my parents got a call from someone. I could see their face change expressions. Once the call ended, they said they needed to go somewhere and would be back in a while. I wasn't sure what was happening, but I felt that something wasn't right. Next morning, I woke up to the worst news of my life. Adam was no more. Apparently, he met with a major accident the previous night and died on the spot. I didn't know how to react because a few hours before he died, I did have a bad feeling. For days, I couldn't even sleep, and I blamed myself because I felt like maybe I could have warned him about it, and maybe he would still gonna be alive. It's been almost 7 years since this incident took place, but every time I think about it, my heart aches and I still wished he was alive. I still can't figure out why I had that sort of a feeling hours before it actually happened, and it scares me. While last year at uni, I lived in a 4-bedroom house with a ground floor, then 2 floors with 2 bedrooms each. My friends had the first floor bedrooms, I was on the second floor, and the bedroom next to me was empty because the guy who had rented it was staying with his girlfriend. I don't think he ever slept there. My bedroom and his had small crawl space cupboards in the corners. I come home from uni one day to find my friends discussing noises sounding like footsteps that they've heard from my floor at night when I was asleep. I laugh because apparently these noises are loud and I have heard nothing. Because I don't believe them, I offer to go look at the crawl spaces. We go upstairs, I open the door of the empty room, and right as I open the door to the crawl space in the other corner of the room slams shut. We freak out. There's no reason for that door to have been open in the first place. So we grab kitchen knives, hole up in one of their rooms, and wait for a friend to come and check the cupboards and attic. We never found out what those noises were, but it was the scariest thing that happened the whole year we were there. Driving from Northern California to Southern California through the middle of the night about a decade ago. I was tired, and the scenery along the freeway through the Central Valley isn't very interesting. I remember passing an old silo, looking at my car clock, and it was 3:17 in the morning. Drove some more past a power line, and it was 3:21. I blinked, shuffled in my seat, and passed that same old silo, and it was back to 3:17. I was in disbelief. I just stared at my clock for a few moments. Drove a little bit more past the same power line, 3:21. Don't know why or how, but I went backwards about 4 minutes. Never experienced anything similar or since. Have a weird memory that's not mine. I'm a small boy with a suit and tie. I'm at a party in a huge ceremonial church or something, and there's lots of men and women wearing fancy black clothes. They all get in a circle. It's the middle of the day, light was brightly coming in through the windows, and there are oldish couple dancing in the middle of the circle with some very classy/fancy music, and I was trying to look at them through people's. That's all I can remember. This is a clear memory that has stuck with me since I can remember. I'm really creeped out because I know that memory isn't mine. I've never gone to a fancy party in a church when I was little, and I don't know what happened. Had a recurring nightmare of a pitch-black parasite sucking the life out of me. Sometimes it waited for me in dark corners to go to bed. My cats always slept on my bed during that time. For me it was a very stressful time. I got an itch at the place of my chest where I dreamed the parasite was sucking my life out of me. I got sick and felt a pea-sized lump. I went to my doc, and they ordered a biopsy of that lump. As it turned out, I had male breast cancer at the age of 28. After I got well again, the dream never came back, and my cats slept in their places again and not on my bed. The dream was creepy enough. What it made for me were my cats protecting me. You know, on cold days inside your car, you can breathe on the window and draw on the glass. I got in my car, and as I look at the windshield, I see a few small baby hands. I thought it was strange someone would let a baby play on my car's windshield. I had an urge to touch the baby prints, and as I touched it, I wiped away the hand prints. Had a schnauzer that could hear a cat stalk across a Persian rug. The slightest noise could wake her from a slumber and set off her constant barking. She made a great tent companion while on backpacking trips. Bears, raccoons, and skunks would all get fair warning if they came within range of our campsite. One morning we woke up from a night without interruptions in the back country of SW, Colorado, and I found my tent's central guy line was no longer staked down by the aluminum stake that I had used, but instead by a piece of aspen branch that had been carved into what looked like a tiki statue. Nothing too ornate, but a snarling face with teeth had been carved from the bark, and it had obviously been heated in a fire to give it a brown color. My dog didn't make a sound, and I apparently slept harder than I thought. I scrambled out of the tent and looked around the small alpine lake, and saw no other campers, nor any sign that people had been around. Cut my trip short, and hauled ass the 8 miles back to my car. Not a single other car in the lot at the trailhead. He had a rescue dog years back, terrier mix. We lived in the countryside on a wooded hillside and owned about 5 acres of woodland and rough fields, mostly wild. This dog loved to be up there chasing rabbits, but loved her home too, so would never be gone for very long. One day she went missing. We took our other dogs up there and searched thoroughly, but nothing. We had another friend bring his dogs, nothing. We advertised, put up posters. We did little but search high and low for 6 days, but nothing. On the 6th day, we had pretty much given up hope, but I decided to go up one last time because I had a hunch, a tickle in my belly, about one particular area which had already been thoroughly searched. I took a sickle and a pair of gardening gloves and hacked my way towards the center of a huge bramble patch. It was summer, and all I could hear was birdsong and insects, but suddenly I heard a muffled yip. I called her name, and then heard her again getting excited. She was deep underground in a rabbit warren. I stayed calling to her until help arrived. The local fire brigade were kind enough to come and help and advise, and we got her out eventually. She ran around like a demented muddy pup, and amazingly the vet said she was basically okay. Had probably been getting enough moisture from eating mud to keep her alive. I am not generally a fanciful person, but I just knew in my knower she was there. No explanation for it. When I was about 8 years old, my kitten Peter Chris, named after the Kiss band member because she was a gray tabby, got hit and killed by a car. I was devastated. I had rescued her with my older sister from a box in the rain. It was a miracle our parents let us keep her and her brother Nigel. One day after school, my mother tells me that there had been a freak accident and that my kitten had died. I found out a few years later that she had been hit. Anyway, later that night, I was laying in bed and I felt her kneading or making biscuits, as some may call it, on my legs. I looked back behind me as I was laying on my stomach, only to see not a thing there. I laid back down and the feeling came back again. Every time I would look behind me, it stopped. To this day, I still believe it was her. TLDR, kitten got killed by car. Felt her ghost making biscuits on my legs. When I was in 3rd grade, I moved to a new town and into a new house. We lived in a camper in the backyard of the house while we renovated it. It was a pretty old house. Anyway, during renovation, we found all sorts of stuff in the walls: old bottles, old pair of glasses, letters, old newspapers, old pictures of children in school clothes. It was a 2-story house, and the stairs were kind of a focal point for all sorts of creepy stuff. So once you got to the top of the stairs, there was a little landing before it went into 2 bedrooms. At night, we would always leave the light on in the landing in case we had to get up to use the bathroom. Me and one brother shared a room, and the other room was for our older brother. I refused to sleep upstairs due to how creeped out I was, so I always slept downstairs on the couch. One weekend, my sister, who is older than both my brothers, came to visit and was in my oldest brother's bedroom alone, as we were all at school and my mum was at work. As she was sitting up there watching TV, she heard footsteps coming up the stairs and called out, as she had thought my mum was home early from work. No response other than the footsteps turning around and heading back down the stairs. When she got up to look, there was no one home and all doors locked. It doesn't stop there. My oldest brother was left home alone for a week while me and my other brother and mom and dad went on a week-long vacation. Naturally, he had his girlfriend over for a couple nights to keep him company. One night, she got up to pee around 3 a.m. and went downstairs to the bathroom where she said she heard children whispering. A couple nights later, around 3 minutes 4 a.m., the GF woke my brother saying someone was in the house. They heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Since the light was on in the landing, they could see a shadow underneath the door like someone was standing there. And the door knob began to shake. Luckily, it was locked. They both started to freak out, and my brother jumped up out of bed. We had some of those dumb display samurai-type swords that aren't even sharp, and he grabbed one of those and went towards the door. They heard more footsteps running down the stairs, and he bravely or stupidly followed down the stairs, where he was met with an empty house. All windows and doors closed and locked. He called the police, but nothing came of it. Fell asleep on the couch in my apartment in Detroit's 16th floor of a high-rise, not a shady area, but right on the water/international border, rife with trafficking and the like. Sometime after midnight I had a feeling that something wasn't right, and it woke me up. I opened my eyes only to look directly at a man standing in my entry hallway, backlit by the hallway light. He slowly backed up upon seeing me awake and closed the door. I ran to wake up my then-boyfriend in the bedroom, and we went out to the hall to see who it could have been, but there was no sign of him. Probably a neighbor who got the wrong door, but still the creepiest thing I've ever woken up to. It was the only night our front door wasn't locked, because that was always my habit, and I had fallen asleep early. The odds of that, plus being all the way on the 16th floor. Was it a lost neighbor? Someone checking doorknobs that night? The what-ifs scare me more than anything. Edit. Thank you for the awards. Also, this comment pushed me over 100 karma. Woohoo. Mama woohoo. I'm around age 14, early 90s. We were traveling from TX up to Tacoma, WA. We were about out of money, almost out of gas, no food, stuck in Chico, California. I sat in the car while Mom took my younger sisters to the restroom at a gas station. I was riddled with anxiety about our situation, and looking down. The car door opened, and I looked up. A lady that looked like a brown-haired Brady mom sat in the seat and faced me. She said, "It seems like you're down on your luck. Take this and give it to your mom. Tell her to pay it forward someday to someone who needs it." I looked down into my hand, and there was a 100 bill. I looked up, and she had disappeared. Nowhere in the parking lot, just vanished. I cried. When Mom came back, I told her what happened, and she cried. We got gas. There was a guy selling oranges on the side of the road, and we bought a bag and went to a local park that had a part of the river with a little spillway dam, and went swimming and ate oranges for a couple of hours before getting back on the road. I never saw the lady again, but she saved us, and we did make it up to Tacoma to start our new life. Thank you, stranger lady with invisible powers. We never forgot your kindness. Why, Grandma and I both saw a dead person in our laundry room once. So, the laundry connected to the kitchen by a doorway. The doorway connected to the living room, too. One afternoon, Grandma needed a hamper, so I followed her to the laundry. We saw the dead person as soon as we stepped foot in that doorway. It looked to be about my height. I was 6 or 7ish and totally black. Not as in an asterisk black person asterisk, but a literal black coating on its skin. It was slumped near the washing machine. We only saw it for a split second. I remember my grandma saying, "Did you see that?" and laughing it off. She got the hamper and did her thing, and I just avoided the kitchen for a while. And, on a semi-related note, I used to have the freakiest nightmares in that house. I had nightmares so graphic so often that my pediatrician wanted me to see a therapist. Ninja edit. I'm not a wholehearted believer in ghosts, but I do still wonder what it was. My grandma always describes it as the garbage bag because it was about that big and slouched in the corner like trash. Not really noteworthy, but being at my apartment and doing work for school, only to receive a text to be told that my online assignment had 4 wrong answers. Just out of the blue, no contact ID or anything. I began to slightly panic and do virus checks and other safety measures. I saved my files to my cloud QND, reset my computer for safety. To this day, I run a VPN and antivirus. For someone to look at what you're doing and to just say something in a text makes second guess how safe you are on the internet. As camping alone in a small one-person tent, all snug and secure in the tent, I went to sleep, was woken by a clap of thunder at 3 a.m. to discover both the inner and outer tent door was wide open. That was freaky,